You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome to the semifinal round of Week 6 here at the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn, joined by Rhino.
Hello.
And we have a matchup of Ping On Me on Shadow Cambrai versus Paradox on Stone Scar Burn.
Yeah, so I believe if I read, I think I saw it in Ping On Me mentioned it in chat earlier. This is actually a rematch from earlier in the tournament that Ping On Me managed to snag in a 2-1 victory. But this is still going to be a tough matchup. Burn is kind of built to beat these like Cambrai-ish mid-range creaturey decks that don't really have a good disruption plan or counter pressure plan, right? This is what Burn is built to really prey on, but this isn't your typical grandmother's Cambrai. This is Cambrai Shadow with some sabotages and some verts, which are traditionally very nice cards to have in this matchup. So we'll have to see how much that splash helps or hinders against an aggressive deck like this.
Yeah, we were talking about this during the break. It's unclear whether or not the addition of sabotage, minus the consistency of his mana, helps or hurts. If his mana works out, the sabotage is going to be a huge boon. It's going to be great. But if he ends up having a slow draw due to his mana, then the subverts being good isn't going to counteract that, or is it best going to be net neutral?
Right. So, and even if you have the sabotages to maybe take out some burn spells, it's not going to matter if you don't have the counter pressure. And so we'll just have to see how these games play out. Like we said, the burn deck probably just on paper is favored, but Ping On Me already got a match from them earlier. Might be able to run it back again here. We'll just have to see how the cards play out.
Yeah, the burn deck is just good. It's just really focused. It's really proactive. It's going to just run over any deck some percentage of the time. So even if you're teched for it, sometimes it's not going to matter.
Yeah. And this burn isn't quite the super aggressive all in burns we've seen in the past. Sometimes this is hedging a little towards mid range. It's got some maidens. That being said, it's still got 4 flame blasts, 3 obliterates, 3 Umber Reapers, 3 Soulfire Drakes. But the power, we're talking about the power being bad for Shadow Cambrai. It's not that good for a burn these days anymore either, with Umber Reaper being triple Shadow, Soulfire Drake being triple Fire. Sometimes the top end you're relying on to kill your opponent isn't going to show up when you want it to.
Especially because Paradox has 3 Diplomatic Seals in their mana base, and Diplomatic Seal cannot possibly get the 3rd influence requirement. So in general, I don't love that card in decks like this where you actually have triple influence requirements, because it can't get that. If you draw it late, it's just not particularly useful. But if you draw it early in the right order and you're able to have things get panned out, then it's fine. But it's unclear how often that happens.
Yeah, Diplomatic Seal is a fickle thing, right? It's a beautiful card when it's in your opening hand, but when you top deck it, at least it's always undepleted. The problem can be when you really need that 3rd influence pip one way or the other, and it's not going to provide that.
Yep. And hopefully players will get into a game soon. We've trying to get them to start, but they're doing some stuff. But we will just talk about this matchup in the meantime. So I think that the shadow cards are good. I think the Subvert and the Sabotage are good.
Right.
The rest of the deck is good. He only has 2 Cambrai healers, which will hurt him a bit in this matchup, but there are some draws where that card doesn't even line up well.
Yeah, and he's got 2 more healers in the side end. Right. The healers gain you life and can block some units. And by some units, I mean basically just Argenport Instigator. This Stone Scar burn list is a bit bigger of a burn, more mid-rangey of a burn that we were talking about, right? There's no Pyro Knights or Oni Ronins that you'll sometimes see out of certain burn lists. This is more just removal and bigger units. So, the Cambrai healers are nice against the Stone Scar burn lists or the burn queen lists that are playing a bit smaller of units. But this one, I mean, you can play all the Cambrai healers you want. I'm going to slam down Impending Dooms and Soulfire Drakes and laugh. So
yeah. And I think Ping On Me is going to be highly reliant on its creatures, like I said, where having Sandstorm Titan into cold, like an Impending Doom or Soulfire Drake or whatever, Like, that matters a lot. Having the creatures function as pseudo removal spells is going to really blunt a lot of the pressure and not force Pingamy to draw the correct interactive spells in a deck with a lot of situational ones.
Yeah, Sandstorm Titan can be a real big deal in this deck. The answers that Paradox has: 2 Annihilates, 2 Death Strikes, 3 Obliterates. Basically it, other than the Flame Blast. So not a bad matchup for this Titan. Can really ground these Drakes and Reapers and Impending Dooms. Gets it to.
Yep, and it looks like players are jumping into the match here.
Yep, and we'll be watching from Ping On Me's point of view. Paradox, I think we're trying to get his hand cam. It looks like it's kind of working right now. I don't know if we'll consistently have it up, but yeah. So we've got that working right now, and hopefully it'll be here for the rest of the show. So yeah, Ping On Me's got a really slow hand here, but the Shadow Sigil helps.
Yeah. And I think I'm actually, my Ping On Me stream is like 20 seconds behind. I'm not sure how to fix that. So I'm going to have to watch this from Paradox's side. But
there's a live button you should be able to hit, like right if you like cover.
Yeah, it's still not doing that. But it's okay. I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. Okay.
It's fine.
So, oh wow, Paradox with a really nice rip off the top here in the form of Champion of Chaos. If he didn't find a unit to play here, really didn't have anything to do until turn 5. So fortunate draws for both players here.
Yep. We see the Vanquish coming down, though, fortunately for Ping On Me. He doesn't get hit a bunch there.
I see. And Ping On Me's on. Gotcha. I see what you're talking about now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so stream's doing a little bit of weird stuff, but the Soulfire Drake is going to potentially be a problem for Ping On Me. He doesn't have anything currently to answer it. If it's able to get in for once or even like 2 hits, that's a lot of damage. Allow these burn spells to convert for lethal damage.
Yeah, Ping On Me is either going to play a flyer here or use a subvert. I really don't like using fire. I think you need to put something on the board. Traditionally, Soulfire Drake not that great against Combre because, well, Desert Marshal is such a clean and nice answer to it. But, you know, they're there. They're in their hand. And here comes a subvert. It looks like
it has a bunch of good hits. Like hitting the Obliterate, the Soulfire Drake is huge. And it hits the Annihilate, which gives him an answer to the Soulfire Drake. So it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, your best hit was probably one of the burn spells, but at least this Annihilate's not dead against Soul. So you can even silence it first and then Annihilate, so you don't even have to worry about the trigger. So
that's a clean mana efficient turn. I definitely don't hate that.
Yeah, that's pretty good here. You're at 19 against a burn deck with 3 cards in hand. All right, that's fine. Like I said, you prefer Subvert to hit the reach rather than a removal spell, but at least there the removal spell had a turn. You'll take it.
Yeah, and now Paradox is on running a little bit low on gas. He did find the Archer off the quarry, but Ping On Me is still at 19. Paradox only has the Obliterate and the Torch left. If he's able to make it so creatures never convert for damage again, which his hand is reasonably well set up to do, then he's probably in a good spot to stabilize and turn the corner.
Ooh. So yeah, Ping On Me's got a lot of options here. Like you could go Acolyte plus Enforcer. You could go just get the 5/5 down and figure it out later.
I like Iron Thorn ramp up to 7 here. It gives you a lot of options in the following turn. If you draw power, you get to Mystic Ascendant. If you don't, you can still do other things.
Like just getting 2 units down and having the Enforcer take out the triggers on Instigator has its appeal too. But yeah, I think you can go either way.
Yeah, I think that it's our Valkyrie plus Amber Acolyte is certainly the more conservative play. It definitely makes so you can Mystic Ascend next turn.
Right. And you have to keep in mind your opponent is playing a different version of Burn where you have other high value silence targets like Statuary Maiden and stuff like that. So it may be a thing where you'd rather just save the silence for something else rather than this Argenport Instigator where these triggers can add up. But when you're at 19, it's not big of a deal. Of course, because he only played an Iron Thorn, this lines up kind of poorly against the Obliterate, although, again, the Obliterate at least isn't going face.
Yeah, so he does get hit by a creature, but it was at the cost of like 2 burn spells. So I think that on the balance, Ping On Me is okay about that. Mm-hmm. This is a slightly awkward turn from here. Parliament is actually
not
pretty
anymore.
reasonable.
Yeah, Parliament's going to make 2 units here. So that's pretty nice. I guess he'd rather find the way out of hand than the Amber Acolyte. Oh, is he going Amber Acolyte, Valkyrie Enforcer this turn? I feel like you just got to play 2
Yeah,
4-4s
I think you want the 2/4/4s. You really want
You're
this.
against burn.
You don't.
I
Yeah, you don't
realize
want to take any more damage from the Sarge board.
like, yeah, trying to set up a Mystic Ascendant is cute, but you're also against burn. You don't have time for cute. I think you have time to like get counter pressure and get a defense up. Parliament does that really clean. All right, well, he opts to do the Enforcer line.
Well, it still does threaten to trade. I mean, if Pygmy draws a removal spell, it gets awkward, but
Sure.
it's not like the most unsafe thing in the world.
Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan. I just think getting Parliament down there is just so good. You get 2 4/4s on this board. Really apply pressure, and you have counter pressure at that point. And you're
Yeah,
still
I
getting the
guess.
power for Ascendant. It's not like you're eschewing Ascendant next turn. Now you're trying to figure out how to play Ascendant and Parliament next turn. That's not possible. Like now you have a choice. You don't have 4/4 flyers. We talked about how burn. You don't only have to survive. You have to find counter pressure. And I don't think this line is in line with that. Oh well,
And now the champion of like the 4 Parliaments are good, but this is a fully powered champion of chaos. It's going to get through for 4 damage at least on any blocker. So Pygmy's getting a little bit punished here for wasting the Valkyrie Enforcer on a like something that didn't really need to be silenced. So even like an Umbred Reaper also would have been punishing. So definitely would have liked to see the Parliament in the previous turn.
Yeah, Parliament previous turn would have lined up so much better here, where you would have now been able to Valkyrie Parliament. Instead, you double Parliament, they have a champion of chaos, and you're in way closer to burn range than the other way.
Yeah, I mean, he has a bunch of pressure in the air. He has this Mystic Ascendant. He has a clock, but he's down to 7 now. Like, he's dead to Flame Blast, and he didn't need to be dead to Flame Blast.
Yeah, I also think it was a little risky there playing the depleted power. I don't want to harp on Ping on these lines here, but I think I play the undepleted power. You have some relevant 3-drops that you want on this board when you're applying pressure. Such as like Combray Healer gets you out of burn range.
Wow, and the Soulfire Drake is going to punish him for attacking with all 3 of the owls. It'll get in for 5.
Somewhat here. Paradox is at 14. The owls represent then a lethal crackback.
That is true.
Actually swing.
Yeah.
So you not really punished in that regard. See Paradox.
Although it's Paradox could have Vars favored the 2/1 before, and if he did that, he could have chump blocked the Mystic Ascendant, and all the owls come in, goes to 12. Right. So he would have been able to put Ping to 2 here if he had killed the Acolyte with the Vars favor.
Good point. Like the mantra is always in burn. There might be less decisions, but they're all very critical when you're talking about these little margins of every point of health super counts. So yeah, this swing presents lethal, so you at least have to get on a block. You're basically dead to a burn spell at any point, so no point in playing around it.
Although if he just chump blocks the Mystic Ascendant and draws Obliterate, that's lethal.
Right. But if he had a space, I guess he would have been able to chump the 2/1, but then would have died. Yeah. Oh man. Whew. Well, he held back an owl, and Paradox is dead.
Yeah. It's really close. Little bit of missteps from both sides there, but Paradox or Pygmy is able to come out on top there at the end.
Yeah, so we can try and criticize lines of play, but the matter of everything here is everybody's been playing for like 7 hours at this point. It's a lot of gameplay to just marathon through. We also have the benefit of seeing hand cams, even though we don't always use that information to help our lines and decisions, especially in the case of burn. It is a slight advantage. This is not a simple game that's straightforward to play.
Yeah. So there's definitely just a lot of decisions, a lot of minor decisions, and we'll see how things pan out for game 2 as we jump into immediately. These are best of 5, so we do not sideboard between game 1 and game 2.
Yeah.
We'll be moving
King on
here.
Me has a very disruptive hand that screams, I hope my opponent doesn't have Argenport Instigator. And he's going to get paid off for this. Opting to take Flame Blast instead of Obliterates. Sure. I think you could go.
Yeah, I guess they're like the Flame Blast is more flexible. Potentially come down earlier. I don't hate it. They're all pretty close to the same power level.
Yeah, you almost have to look at his perspective of I have 2 subverts. Which one do I want to take? Obliterate or Flame Blast?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather end up with Flame Blasts in hand just because of the flexibility of them in my deck. Like your opponent is representing double shadow. I just not sure why I'm taking this triple fire card.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I'm not convinced it matters a whole bunch because they're like functionally the same card. So
yeah,
it's not going to
especially
be
on
a
the
huge
play.
deal.
It's not a big deal, but it's an incredibly nitpicky thing to be worried about. And
But likely to see a Vanquish here. You could get cute with the Desert Marshal, but then you have to double block. I think we just see a clean Vanquish here. It is relatively mana inefficient, but you don't care as much about mana efficiency as you do about not taking damage in this matchup.
Right. You've got these subverts. You want to make sure they can stick and do something. Yep. He just uses the Vanquish, takes the pressure off the board, goes back to holding up a Desert Marshal. And Paradox is stuck on power, and this is where Subvert can be real nice.
Yep. Has to hit a business spell.
You could think about playing Desert Marshal Hill for extra pressure. You could legitimately consider that.
I think that's too aggressive. I think there's too many things like Omen Reaper and Soulfire Drake you really want to silence.
I don't disagree with that, but when your Subvert's going to take Soulfire Drake, why do you need to silence it?
I mean, I guess you're right. Why would you keep Desert Marshal when you're just going to take it?
Did you not know that Subvert was going to take Soulfire Drake? Because I did.
What a fool I was.
All right, so Vera's Favor not getting another fire source. That Soulfire Drake was uncastable for the record. It was triple fire, so at least somebody gets to put it to use here.
Yeah, someone gets to cast it.
I'm going to keep track of the fact that he's missed out on like 4 damage from Desert Marshal already, and we'll see if that's relevant.
Here is Champion of Chaos, but we have another Vanquish for that.
Yes,
so you get to Vanquish and Subvert.
Yeah, it seems good. Subvert first, right?
First,
yeah. Whatever.
The thing that gives you cards you generally want to do first. You want information first. So, for example, if you Subvert and they have a torch and they didn't cast it for whatever reason, then you would want to use that, maybe.
Yeah, a little odd sequencing here, but ultimately doesn't. You're casting Subvert and Vanquish, and not much. It's maybe if they drew, if you get a torch off this Subvert, but there hasn't been pauses here, so they don't have a torch.
I mean, Stash remains good to for them to not have. It's not super good for you, but I guess that's fine.
It's something. Yeah, that's not the best Subvert hit when you know they've got like Obliterate and looks like impending doom and stuff.
And it looks like we have. He's probably just gonna attack here. And you're cool with the trade.
Yeah, I think you play Maiden pre-combat. I guess it's better than playing Parliament on this board. So yeah.
I mean, he's just Piggy's just killing Paradox with his own cards.
We missed out on
lose the beatdown.
6 Marshal damage, but now he does get to save the Marshal for this impending doom here if they don't make the trade. And we've got chat going between these guys.
We'll see. I actually just lost the stream, so I don't know if the attack happened or not, but I would expect that he just attacks in, and if it trades, cool. If it doesn't, cool.
Yeah, no trade went down. So Paradox is at 6, has an impending doom that this is actually interesting depending on what Paradox decides to do with the doom. All right, so it swings in. Ping on Me has the option of silencing and blocking with the Maiden, but before he gets to make a choice, Paradox decides to pack it in. I was going to actually say to not silence there because you actually want that 1 damage ping when your opponent's at 6 and you have a 5 attack flyer in play. Making them go to 5 is nice. Saw that there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's
they would have been dead to Marshall if we played it.
For the record.
So results oriented, I was correct to beat down with Marshall.
Yeah, and we basically saw that game where the Stone Scar deck was unable to generate any pressure early with creatures. The subverts when the discard were just ripped apart Paradox's hand. And that was the Shadow Splash coming into play, being a huge payoff.
It also turned out that they never had even double fire, much less triple fire, I don't think. So all those cards they took, the Stone Scar deck wasn't going to cast for now, but eventually would have. And those putting them to better use through the use of Subvert was nice.
Yep. We will be doing some sideboarding here.
Right. Sideboard time. Yep. Ping on Me is up 2-0 over Burn.
Yes.
So
and we've seen
climb out of the 2-0 hole before. We'll see if it can happen this time.
Yeah, and we'll see the sideboards from both players. We do see
Mhm.
Pingami's sideboard. He has access to Copper Conduit, Dark Return, Comber Healer, Copperall Bailiff, Decay, Scorpion Wasp, and Zendel's Gift. I'd mainly expect the Comber Healers and possibly the Scorpion Wasps. He just wants to live. If the longer the game goes, it's better for him. To a point, he does need to enact a like end game to
Right.
turn the corner, but he does need to get to like turn 6, 7 to do
Yeah.
that.
So what do you cut for those things? Like, I guess the full 4 Mystic Ascendant, you just don't want that. You want to trim some of those down and hope to just end the game some other way.
I'm not convinced I want Iron Thorn in this matchup. You know, your opponent has Annihilates and stuff. You don't need the mana that much.
Sure.
The only thing that costs more than that is Mystic Ascendant. And yeah, like Great Parliament, you want
What
to
about
like these useful
I'm
flowels.
I'm honestly not a huge fan of Harshal in this matchup. Just
That's
because
certainly a reasonable.
of what I've talked about earlier, where it's not just about stopping their threats, it's about getting your own counter pressure. And sometimes harsh rule, sure, it might answer 1 to 2 units I have on board, but usually burn doesn't get much more than that on board. It's not answering the burn that's in their hand. It's not helping you generate counter pressure. So, I mean, harsh rule is the real reason why burn has such a good matchup. I think is because like it's almost helping burn.
Yeah, you generally don't want to play like 5 mana kill a creature, which is often what Harsh Rule is. It also really makes it awkward when you're trying to extend on the board to generate the counter pressure. Like you want to play like things like Seraph and Comber Healer to block it some stage of the game and then counterattack when you can. But if you have Harsh Rule in your hand and you're trying to leverage Harsh Rule, it really disincentivizes you from getting onto board or punishes you for getting onto board. So I could definitely see a strategy involving no harsh rules for Pingami post board.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Pingami's going that route. He's trimming down his sideboard right now, as we see. And Harsh Rule's still at 4. Martial Ironthorn did get trimmed down to 1. Mystic Ascendant still at 4. Parliament's got trimmed down to 2. I guess because against 5/5 flyers, they're not that great, but I like them against 5/1 flyers and 5/2 flyers that your opponent's throwing at you. Although I imagine Burn might cut some Soulfire. But yeah, it looks like Pingami is going with still trying to be control rather than counter pressure. You still have Scorpion Wasps and stuff that we brought in as expected. The Combre healers are also here. Dark Return coming. I'm not sure. I guess just Dark Returning Combre healers and Scorpion Wasps is better than just drawing other units.
That's what I would expect. Just Dark Returning Comber healers. Sure. And also, you do want creatures in play to turn the corner. So just having some kind of creature, like even Dark Returning Stance or Titan, it would be out of Obliterate range. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Yeah. I understand it.
And at the last second there, Pingami cut 2 Mystic Ascendants for 2 Iron Thorns to just help with the curve. 6 or running 4 6-drop 4/4s, not ideal.
Yeah, Mystic Ascendant's technically a 7-drop. It's essentially a 7-drop, which is probably going to be too slow a lot of time in this matchup. We do a quick overview of Paradox's sideboard options. He has a Charchain Flail, Sabotage, Treachery, Plague, Furnace Mage,
Treachery.
Stir of the Past, Number Reaper. And yes, I would like Treachery in this matchup. Treachery is a really good card. They have a lot of particularly potent creatures. You still burn them with it. It still converts to damage. It's some of the better interaction you can have. So I don't hate that. Outside of that, like I don't want to play things that really dilute your aggression. So maybe you could bring in Charchain Flow if you want to. But outside of that, all the other cards slow down your deck, and I'm not in the business of doing that. So I would just find someone for Treachery, probably cut like Annihilate maybe, or Charchain Flail potentially, something like that.
I would definitely keep in the Annihilates. Yeah, the Charchain Flails are probably what go against a deck with this many units. And your opponent's playing enough spells that Sabotage is interesting. I don't know how good it is, but something to consider. But yeah, you're not changing a whole lot up here. I don't think you're bringing in Steward of the Past or Umbran Reapers or Furnace Mage. You're just dealing with, I think Soulfire Drake's still ultimately more effective than Umbran Reaper in this matchup, especially because it's easier to cast than Umbran Reaper. You're running more Fire Sigils and you have the extra. I guess you're running one more Vera's Favor than Kalev's Favor. Usually you're trying to hit triple Fire, not triple Shadow. But we're in a game. Wowee.
Oh, cool. I'm still like 10 seconds behind apparently, but I will catch up. I'm coming.
Pingami is looking at a hand with 0 power in it, debating on whether or not he wants to keep it, and decides to ship it to the surprise of probably 0 people.
Okay, I'm back live. So yeah, this hand's like slow, but
This hand is better than the last one.
if Paradox has an Argentport Instigator, it's going to be rough sailing for Ping and me. But if he doesn't, and he has a more slower draw involving a lot of burn, he can get these Sandstorm Titans down and actually start converting them. But again, I was talking about, or we were both talking about the harsh rule being awkward in this matchup because you want to play these Sandstorm Titans to start pressuring and blocking, but then you have your own board in play for this harsh rule, and then you're like 3 for 2ing yourself or something. Like, it's just really hard to leverage from that spot.
Right. Like, burn has a super easy, straightforward, linear plan of I'm trying to kill you. Every card in my deck is dedicated to that. Where this deck Combre here or Combre variants are just like, well, I'm controlling the board with units, but I'm also controlling it with harsh rule when my units can't control the board, and it can just be really muddled. Now, Sabotage did come in, as we speculated may have happened, and it took a harsh rule, so Paradox fixed that for Ping on Me anyway, and Ping on Me ripping uncastable subverts. All right.
Yep. I mean, I guess it's kind of good because you might not want to cast it this early anyway. You'd want to play the Titans to have a board, but it's a little awkward. And as we were talking about before, I think there's just a lot of decks and situations where people don't really know when they're supposed to run harsh rule. I think harsh rule is like this auto-include card for any Justice mid-range deck. That's really not the case. Like, if you want to be proactive, harsh rule is a liability a large portion of the time in your deck. And especially in post-board situations where you need to be aggressive because of what your opponent is doing, you really don't want that card.
So Paradox has kind of been doing nothing. Found both of his sideboarded sabotages and hit a subvert and a harsh rule, which was at least you hit things. He probably was hoping to find something like Parliament instead, but Ping on Me actually took out Parliament. So kind of funny. But yeah, anytime your sabotages don't whiff, it's still a good thing. So Paradox has quite a slow start here, but we got to imagine he's got some haymakers stored up in that hand.
And here we have poor Impending Doom, unable to do much of anything on this board. Even if they get through one Sandstorm Titan, there's another one coming. So
yeah,
that is.
Burn likes to be in a spot where they can get one threat and deal with your threats one at a time. But once you get 2 threats out against Burn, it can get a little sketchy unless they find like an Annihilate.
Yeah, definitely. See, there's the Death Strike, but this Impending Doom still can't attack because of the second Sandstorm Titan. So
yep. And
there's doesn't get to crack back for 5. Attack. Here's the super awkward harsh rule you're talking about.
Right. It's like, boy, I'm sure glad I drew this harsh rule instead of, I don't know, anything else.
Literally anything.
But yeah, like harsh rule's still a nice get out of jail for free card in some spots. The problem is a lot of those spots against Burn involve Burn having 3 units already on board that have hit you a lot and you're already in Burn range. Like, harsh rule's not really helping, like, bailing you out in any of those like bad situations that it can against other mid range.
And a lot of burn creatures like Omen Reaper and Soulfire Drake have Entomb triggers, and they get value from that. So when you have some number of creatures, your own creatures on the board, and then some number of their creatures, but they have Entomb triggers, like, the harsh rule is just bad for you. Like, they get more out of it.
So we'll interrupt this bashing harsh rule program to get back to whatever Paradox is deciding to do here. And yeah, plays a Soulfire Drake and is just trying to push through damage desperately here. All right. So trade in 5 damage, gets rid of the self-impending doom clock, I suppose. But he could have also just played the dragon and offered a double block on the other side, and I guess maybe Ping on Me would have let him slowly die.
Yeah, and we see I'm electing to block the impending doom so we can Valkyrie this Soulfire Drake. This way, the Soulfire Drake trigger doesn't go off. If he elected to eat it before, it would have.
I don't know if I use that Vanquish there.
I don't either. Yeah, it's already colded. If he plays another one, you could just block one of them with the Sandstorm Titan and block the other with the 3/3.
Like, you're at 20, they're at 8. Don't you want this Vanquish for this kill here? All right, there's a Flame Blast out. Yeah, I could see. Ooh, Subvert is live. Burn? Oh, it's gonna get burned, 100%. Quarry is a burn spell.
Quarry's good enough.
Oh, all right. Well, at least you get those out of your way, so that's something.
Yeah, digging through those isn't awful.
You take this seat, although you're not playing the triple shadow card, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you take.
Yeah, it doesn't have much of a difference. So we will see this Valkyrie come in, but if Paradox has like an Obliterate to kill this Valkyrie and do some damage, he's not in an awful spot.
Yeah. Just imagine, though, if Harsh Rule was a unit that could attack and block. Let's just let's resume the harsh rule bashing for a second.
Yeah, this card's just dead. Like, this, I mean, there might be a point where, like, so if Paradox obliterates this, then play some creatures, Harsh Rule Harsh Rule might be a 5-mana Death Strike at some point in this game. That's its ceiling.
All right, so the Subvert either whiffed on a Varus favor or a Champion of Chaos. There's no way of knowing. We'll never know. And wow, 3 straight power from the top of Ping On Me's deck, but has the lethal unit in play. So Paradox has to find an answer here.
And if he does, it actually swings like reasonably far in his favor. But we just see the Shadow Sigil, and that's it. And that's Ping On Me 3-0, right?
Yeah, that's the 3-0.
Yep, so Ping On Me just tearing through the Stonescar Burn deck. And we did see the Stonescar Burn deck side into some of the slower cards like Sabotage and just have nothing to do in the early game and kind of
the theory with Sabotage is, I get to take, I guess, Harsh Rule and Vanquish, and I have this 5/5 and this 5/2, and that's great, but my opponent had 2 5/6s. I can only answer one. This is a problem.
Yeah, it's always awkward.
Yeah, just didn't have the answer to Double Titan. Had the answer for one, just not both. Had the Suicide of 5/5. The way the rest of their hand shaped up, I don't know if I like that attack, but yeah, I think either way, they weren't getting out of that.
And we do have the backup for the other side of the bracket. Potentially, maybe. It looks like the stream from Hythar might not actually be working, so we'll try and get that worked out and see if we can bring the backup. But in the meantime, we could talk about how bad Harsh Rule is.
Let me tell you something about Harsh Rule. It can't attack or block. It's garbage.
Yep. There's no damage.
Well, it does damage if you have an Argent Port Instigator in play.
That is true.
Yeah.
But the main thing is that I think people just need to get used to the decks that Harsh Rule's in. Like, generally, if you are being proactive in the first, 3 turns of the game, you don't want Harsh Rule in your deck. Like, if you're running Awakened Student, Harsh Rule should not be in your deck. Frequently seen situations where people run those cards in conjunction.
On ladder, I've just so many games where it's like, they're playing Initiative Sands. Surely they don't have Harsh Rule. Or, they're the Oni Ronin Harsh Rule decks.
Have that happen. The Oni Ronin Harsh Rule is the best.
It's incredible. I don't know what goes through people's minds when they build those decks, but they exist, and it's confusing. And I guess they're just out there to confuse it. Pretty. Successful.
It's a learning process. Like, a lot of the people coming to Eternal may not be familiar with Magic, may not be familiar with these effects, maybe trying to just feel things out, see how things go. But Harsh Rule goes in a very specific type of deck for specific reasons. It's not just like a card you put in your deck based on raw power level. It's synergizes with certain things. So in certain situations, like the one Ping On Me found himself in, he probably wanted to side it out because both the Harsh Rules he drew were really bad. Although one of them at least soaked up a Sabotage, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise the Sabotage would have whiffed, and oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it could have been a Great Parliament instead or something. Yeah. And this isn't to say Harsh Rule is a terrible card, but it's not an auto 4 of just because you're a Justice mid-range deck. Like, that's a bad approach to take with it, and it's a mistake that I've seen in spots. I'm not trying to say like, he definitely shouldn't have played some number of Harsh Rule post board, but I think 4 may have been extreme just for the reasons we've highlighted in the past.
Yeah, like a good example.
Playing well and getting to the finals, it's hard to really critique it, but there's still room for improvement. I'd like to think I know a thing or two about sideboarding, but I might just talk.
Yeah, like for instance, the Vodafone combo deck has early drops like Voice of the Speaker, Combry Emissary, the stuff that they want to stay and play early. Right. That if they Harsh Ruled, like, you're blowing up your own game plan, why would you do that? So I've seen a lot of people run Harsh Rule in that deck, and there's certainly iterations in which you could run it if you change some things around and don't run Emissary. But in general, if you're doing all that stuff proactive early, like, why do you want to kill your own stuff? It's yours. It's not theirs.
Yeah, it's like, I'm playing Combray. I got these great units. I can't wait to kill them.
So it looks like we actually are getting the backup matchup now. I do see Hythar. Yep.
Let's stop beating this horse.
Those high quality Harsh Rule trashing filler. But we have an actual game to cover now between Hythar and Tobias.
All right, and it looks like Hydar's got a decent board to have us stand together with, and has Protect up for this is Zindal's gift. Look at this actual interaction and counterplay. Incredible.
This is awesome. This is great. And one thing to note is that Tobias is the Stone Scar deck, and his opponent is at 25, and it is like turn 7. So
another fun thing to note is that Harsh Rule kills your own units when it has Aegis.
Yep. So here's Harsh Rule being awesome again.
Yeah. But do we know what game this is on? Is this like game 2, 3, 4?
We're not sure yet. I'm sure we'll get word from our production crew at some point. But until then, we can evaluate the options that Hyder has this turn. Oh no, actually he's passed back to Tobias. Apologize. So he's gonna attack in here with the 2/3/3s. Hyder's gonna throw out some blocks, take a damage from the chump, but the Death Strike will actually blow up the block. But then the counterplay of the stand together. So
Tobias still gets to kill the 1/1 and get a trigger, but
it does make it so this Combo Healer is just good enough to eat this Champion of Chaos, so it's just colded.
Yeah. But again, this comes back to Combray needs to find counter pressure at some point for this burn deck. So now you're going to play this Valkyrie Enforcer onto an empty board against burn and try and swing there while you have a Harsh Rule in hand. Like, it's this big conflict of interest going on that's hard to figure out when you've got this like clashing game plan. Playing
a naked Valkyrie is just so bad against the Stone Scar deck because you really want to silence Champion of Chaos and Umbran Reaper and Stone Scar or Soulfire Drake. There's so many things that are really, really important to silence. And it was interesting to see Tobias not obliterate and get in for 3 damage there. I'm not sure how he thinks that's getting better, but apparently he does. And it will tag the Seraph, which is better. So,
yep. All right. And Seraph gets obliterated. We're still at this stalemate. There's board stalemate. I'm combining words now because it's late.
the classic stalemate.
Yeah, the old stalemate is going on here. And we're just top decking, which usually favors Combray, especially now that Combray has a
like Hi there does this Harsh Rule does at least act as an emergency button. Like if Tobias draws running threats, he can pull the trigger on it. But he does need to find something to turn the corner eventually.
Yeah, but the protect means he's not at least under pressure from like random burn reach, so now he doesn't actually have to play a unit out. It's a little interesting that he's playing out this power. I guess the idea is if you find a Mystic Ascendant, you still have 1 power, and if you get to 11 power, that means you can activate your Seraph. So he's just always going to hold 1.
Ooh, there's a great problem. And that was Valkyrie actually gets to get value, which is super good. It threatens to trade with the champion. There's a bunch of owls.
Far ahead here. Like protect in hand still, 10 damage in the air. It's going to be tough for Tobias to get out of this one.
Maybe the 11 damage Flame Blast would be great if it wasn't for this protect.
And you could, hold that protect for the actual lethal burn, but that's running some risks here when your opponent has like charging flyers potentially in their deck or something.
Yeah, there's
with all these birds.
There's not really many burn spells that do more than 11. I think you're content with having 1 mana gain 11.
Yep. So Hythar, again, just taking lots of power out of their deck and putting it into play. And Tobias could swing here and then, lose. And he opts to concede instead.
So it's a good match. We actually never got word on what the score was there. So we'll see if they move into another game or if that was the conclusion.
Yeah, Hythar. Let's see here. All right. We're still figuring this out, I guess. We'll know eventually.
Apologize for the. Oh, apparently we have conflicting reports on the match score. So
all they have
we
to
were
do is
waiting on to figure out what it is.
All they have to do is open their profile. And they will know.
Yep.
All right, we're losing Hythar's.
Easy way to sub this. Yep, I still have mine. So we will try and get this sorted out, see what game this is, if we're playing another one, and move on to that. But I guess in the meantime, we could talk about this matchup where, again, we saw like the Combrei deck trying to be proactive and turn the corner and make a board that they can use to block with and then counterattack with. And then Harsh Rule is doing a whole bunch of nothing. Oh, okay. So Tubbo is up 2-1 currently.
Okay, so that was the first post-war game. Tubo was up 2-0. Yep, we can now confirm that with Hydar's screen right here. All right, so yeah, we've still got potentially a lot of match left here. Tubo just needs to take one more game to finish it off, but Hydar can do the old reverse sweep by winning 2 more in a row. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. We could go into sideboards here, see what they're going to bring in. We do see that Tobias has the Zendel's Gift, which we did see him bring in. We saw that towards the beginning of our cut into this game. I am generally not a fan of that because you're trying to fight Combrei on their axis. Sorry about that. Their axis, which is not something you're equipped to do. I think you want to fight on your axis. I think you want to maintain being aggressive, and you really don't want cards like that slow your deck down.
Yeah, at the same time, you do have some kind of like bad cards. Like we talk about how Torch is really low impact against Combrei. Yeah, at least you care about the burn up side of it, but maybe you don't care about it enough, and you'd rather have something like a Zindel's Gift to, in a top deck mode against Combrei, burn sometimes can be favored. Again, it's kind of a weird pivot, but who knows? Like I said, I have not played burn enough in a best of 3 meta to really know how this plays out. So we'll just have to see.
And here we are jumping into game 4. Tobias is up 2-1. And we see Hydar's hand is pretty reasonable. He has the 2 power, Find the Way, Combrei Healer of removal spell. This is actually pretty close to how you draw it up for Hydar.
Yeah. You got the healer, you got the removal, you got power development. All it's really missing is like a Desert Marshal somewhere to help with the nuisances that could show up. And maybe you don't want Mystic Ascendant in your opening hand. Gonna sit there and not do a whole lot for a while.
We see that Tobo's kind of like deep in the tank, figuring out whether or not they want to keep this hand. I imagine they'll mulligan it. It's also possible they're just AFK. But we will see whether or not he elects to keep this hand shortly. And he's going to want to try and look for a hand with early pressure. Right now, he can't cast that Argent Port. So yeah, we will see him ship it back, look for something where he can do it, cast the Argent Port, and there it is. This is a turn 2 Argent Port draw, and if he draws another Shadow, he gets to follow up with Cabal Countess. Yeah. If he draws Running Power, he can do Impending Doom. So a lot of pressure in this hand. We're just going to see if the mana pans out.
Cabal Countess is a fascinating card in this matchup, just because it's a 3-drop that can attack into Sandstorm Titan, but is really fragile and can be answered. But when they don't have that answer, it just starts tearing up Combrei.
Yeah, giant quick draw creatures are, to an extent, Combrei's Achilles heel. So when you're able to enable that card and actually have time to spend the mana on ultimating it, it definitely is something they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Tobias here, kind of tight on power. That's a concern, but at least has things to do with that power. Hydar, in the meantime, has the time to kind of develop his resources, although this Argent Instigator is going to present some pressure.
He didn't play a Combrei banner on the previous turn, which kind of priced him into playing a Find the Way that turn instead of playing a blocker. So takes 3 damage. We'll see if that matters. Could have had a blocker in play potentially. It would have gotten killed by the torch, but again, that's a torch going at a creature, not face, and you're generally okay with that.
And I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like these cams aren't quite synced up. It looks like Hydar is a bit further behind, so mostly focus on ways. I don't know.
Yeah, there's been a bit of delay, so mine's been desynced a few times as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, apologies to everyone, folks, but we don't have an observer mode yet. We do what we can, and sometimes it's not perfect, but it's about as good as it's gonna get here. I'd like to think that anyway.
So Hydar has the option to play Valkyrie Enforcer here, leave up Stand Together, and still block. He elects to go for the Valkyrie Enforcer. Now he's 2 creatures that can potentially block this, although, as we see on Tobias' side, he has multiple removal spells, but he will go with the the Cabal Countess, which can attack after ultimating, which he doesn't have enough mana for, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Tobias still stuck on power. Can be pretty awkward sometimes with the burn. Like it's an aggressive deck, but it does have a lot of expensive cards, and you can get gummed up here where you just start hopefully casting one spell a turn. But if your opponent gets to start casting 2 spells a turn, like we see here from Hythar, you can fall behind pretty quick.
Yeah, and these 2 spells are probably, it's interesting which one you silence and which one you save the Vanquish for. I would probably silence the Champion of Chaos and vanquish the Cabal Countess just because you get to do both in this turn. But Hythar likes to do it the opposite fashion.
Yeah, and with your opponent being stuck on power, like the Cabal Countess isn't quite as threatening, I suppose, because if they use up a whole turn activating that, it's kind of victory for you anyways. But it's pretty close one way or
And Thrice gets the shadow side of the Champion of Chaos, so one of these 3/3s can jump in front, and Hythar would not take any damage, which he's probably cool with. He also gets to get this Mystic Ascendant online next turn, but Tobias' hand is just so much removal. Either Death Strike or Annihilate can deal with it, but maybe you can force Tobias' mana to be awkward depending upon how he plays this turn.
I find it a little interesting that they didn't actually swing with one of their Valkyries here, but because
potentially they might get cute with this stand together.
Yeah, I guess that's the thought, but like, how are you doing that, right? Like, your opponent has a bunch of open power. I guess now if they try and torch your combo healer, you kind of get them, but not really. Oh, they're gonna torch that way. All right.
Well, now you definitely do it. Yeah.
Well, he chooses not to.
That's interesting because that saves your guy, and well, it doesn't save your guy because it's in combat with a Death Toucher. So yeah, it's actually fine.
Yeah,
that was a weird torch.
Toucher. Yeah, but I liked it from Tobos. It turned out to play pretty well against Stand Together if that's what you're like expecting. But again, you kind of had a 3/3 that didn't attack or block, and I don't know what your plan was for it anyway. Yeah, now Hythar's kind of getting on the back foot here. He opted to play Mystic Ascendant rather than Vanquish and continue to hold up Stand Together or whatever. But he at least drew some cards, gets to get a Seraph down, Vank, and maybe hold up Stand Together if he gets undepleted power. In the meantime, Tobias has a lot of choices here as far as putting more units on this board against a deck potentially playing Harsh Rule or being content with what you have. Using Death Strike here,
I actually like Death Strike on the combo healer, and then you just alpha, and then the Valkyrie trades with something, and you get a bunch of damage in, and then these burn spells are better. You fall for the Impending Doom. I think it's just a bunch of damage.
I like that line a lot as well. It looks like he's gonna go for the flyer instead, but now you can't swing with your Cabal Countess.
Yeah, this is, and then like the Argent Porch just bounces. This is a bit awkward.
Yeah,
he could have forced through 7 damage here.
All right.
Well, on the side of Hythar, he draws a Sandstorm Titan. He can play Sandstorm Titan in one of his 3 drops. Sandstorm Titan, leave up Stand Together. He has a lot of options here. He gets to play 2 spells at least anyway. So
could play the Vanquish finally.
Also reasonable. Yep.
But yeah, Valkyrie Enforcer, Silence plus Seraph could be good. Hold up Stand Together still. If you're gonna keep holding up Stand Together, you have to use it. So,
yeah, you can't just keep voiding 3 of your mana every turn.
You keep holding it up, and then it's like, oh, they actually used a spell. I'm not going to use this now. So yeah, Hythar realizing this is kind of taxing holding up Stand Together here. Let's just get down another good blocker on this board. They already used Annihilate, Torch, Death Strike. They're running out of removal here. They're tight on power. This is the window to really try and take over this board.
It's unfortunate for Tobias. He has to use his turn to quarry. Finds a Caleb's favor, so he'll be able to do stuff next turn, but kind of just spawn his tires, not really doing anything that turn.
Now Hythar gets to start swinging with this flyer, play Sandstorm Titan, use Stand Together. All that stuff is awesome. Honestly, I would consider just using Stand Together while your opponent's like basically tapped. Suppose they could have, Annihilate. Wow, doesn't even swing with the 3/3 first, just holding everything back.
I think that might have been because you saw he like tried to bounce over to the Valkyrie after and then realized, but so he might have. I've done it. I've been there.
So here comes the Obliterate. Imagine you blank this with Stand Together. Yep.
Yeah, what else is standing in the doom with
So
his life?
now Tobias is in a rough spot, staring down a bunch of units with Aegis that are bigger than his own.
Yeah, now we can just start attacking. And even with this Mystic Ascendant draw, we'll probably see the Scribe first.
Now you can Combre Healer your Sandstorm Titan to force the triple block, but you still don't actually get to kill 3 units unless you vanquish at a time.
I think you just vanquish an alpha here, right? Or you leave back the Comber Healer, I guess.
I like the
but
vanquish.
I think you have
alpha
really
here.
good
Like,
attacks.
you're doing like so much damage. I think I would have Combre Healed like the Seraph instead, so I could still vanquish. But
yeah, Comber Healer, the CS, the Seraph, vanquish, the 4/1 alpha seems great.
Yeah, this is kind of some interesting hedging going on, and like now you're just trading a bunch of units. It's still just you're so far ahead on board. I don't think it matters too much, but
yeah, fortunately for Hythar, he's still at 23 on like turn 10 against
yeah,
the burn deck.
I
So
guess he just wants to save vanquish for slightly larger units rather than a 4/1. That's fine. That's reasonable. But at the same time, when you could have presented like 15 damage there or something, your opponent's log jammed in hand.
and this Sandstorm Titan is just very good against what the Tobias's remaining threats.
Oh,
The
and
Impending
protect.
Doom, the
Yeah, so now you get to vanquish Impending Doom and like push with Sandstorm Titan, or play a Mystic Ascendant and not. Okay, sure. I'm gonna stop trying to guess lines of play here anymore.
whatever we say, it's gonna be something else.
Yeah. All right.
We're like batting 1,000 for choosing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Wow. Plays a Mystic Ascendant on. I mean, I like attacking more than other Combre players, is I guess what it comes down to. Combre players play Combre so that they get to not attack ever until they magically
until their opponent concedes through tilt, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like the opposite. But now we get a double vanquish. Okay.
You don't even have to use the protect on the Armored Reaper trigger. You're going to 20. Who cares?
Well, yeah, you don't even have protect up anymore. Like,
oh, he did tap out. Yes, I thought he had one.
Yeah, like why are you doing this turn and not the last turn? But okay, hey, better late than never, right? Here comes Sandstorm Titan. He's already protected. You don't really care if you're like Mystic Ascendant gets flame blasted. Let's be real here. You 20 health, 18. Whatever.
Getting the Seraph dying does remove his inevitability to some degree. I guess he still has the Mystic Ascendant of the Titan, but
yeah.
So that's actually not true.
So now we get Seraph activations, I guess, or I guess he wants to keep the Titan around to keep everything grounded, so you can't swing with that, even though it would kill almost everything. Some armor. Great.
Awesome. That's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like Hythar is like pretty firmly stabilized. It's incredibly challenging for Tobias to win from the spot. His creatures are never getting to face ever again.
All right. Now Hythar can bring it on home here.
So I guess there's a permutation of reality where Tobias can just draw like enough burn to fight through everything, but it seems unlikely.
And yet again, I'm completely wrong. I need to stop calling lines here. I have no idea why he didn't vanquish there. Just playing the Seraph lottery instead. But he just doesn't want to attack with a 6/10, I guess. He just has no interest in it.
Oh, and there's a great parliament. We're going to see that. We're going to see Seraph.
Sure.
I guess the owls can't attack. I think we're at the point where you can Humbug, great, awesome. These have been below average Seraphs for the Eternal Tournament series. These Seraphs generally are hitting Cersos and Akarias left and right.
He finally gets another power to draw a card. You make an 8/8, which is great here. Actually gets to have Protect up when he activates Seraph, which is incredible. Ooh, gets to draw even 2 more cards off the Minotaur
The
Ambassador.
combo.
So see, this is why he hasn't attacked, because he wanted to do sweet stuff. Right? He didn't
excellent.
want to win the game. He wanted to do sweet stuff, and that's what we've got here. Still not using Vanquish. Sure.
I mean, you don't play Mystic Ascendant to kill your opponent. You play it to draw cards.
Yeah, this is amazing. Like I don't know. There must be a card in Stone Scar that's a better Vanquish target than what they have in play, and I'm just forgetting it. I don't know.
No, just like
here comes the Flame Blast. Maybe Protect will get used. Okay, we get one correct call here.
When faced with the decision of killing your opponent and dirtling, who among us would not continue to just dirtle.
All right, I'm gonna go on a limb and say Hythar might have lethal here, but I
Unclear.
could be wrong again. I could actually just be wrong.
I mean, he certainly has profitable attacks if he elects to use both Vanquishes, or even just this first Vanquish.
Sure. Oh. This game's incredible.
Maybe he'll
like
stop
Hythar
playing with his food.
could win this. Let's see here. Even with the 5 drain from Umbran Reaper, you would go from 21 to 16. That's well out of Flame Blast range.
Yeah, he is very safe. I mean, I think Tobias could draw running Flame Blasts.
Even then, he's just gonna die on the next turn.
Yeah,
Running Flame Blast. He's got one turn to find it out, and he can't find the out in one. Hythar, I think, has this unless he elects to not attack, but Tobias isn't going to give him that option and scoops it up.
Yep, he's just throwing in the towel, being merciful to all of us.
Classic Combrade
so
victory.
Move on.
I could kill you, but you'll kill yourself first.
That is how it goes. That's like, I was playing a Chalice deck on stream the other day, and it literally couldn't win the game. It just couldn't. The deck couldn't lose, so you just sit there and not lose, and then eventually your opponent would concede. You couldn't beat them, but they didn't know that.
Yep. So, well played by Hythar there. Gets the win. So was that? He's trying to run the reverse sweep, right? We're 2-2.
Yes.
This is the decider. Oh man.
Yep. This is the final game. So we will see how this pans out. Just need the game. Hythar just needs the game to go in a similar fashion. Just slow it down, not take damage from creatures. If he's able to stall the board out, Tobias is only on burn, and it's generally not going to be enough. So,
yeah, those protects are huge in this matchup. If you can keep finding those hands with Sandstorm Titan plus protect, he'll be able to find a nice path to victory.
Yeah, Sandstorm Titan just colds like every creature in the Stone Scar deck, with the exception of Champion of Chaos.
Right.
But everything else just can't attack through it. So as long as you're able to protect that, the Sandstorm Titan, it's just attacking and blocking, and well, not so much attacking in Hythar's hands, but it blocks a lot. It's really good at blocking.
All right, so the challenge is out. It looks like we're just waiting, or I'm lagging something.
I think that we're just waiting on Tobias to accept the challenge.
All right.
Whenever he elects to do so, we can move on to the final deciding game, Game 5.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of Game 5s in the top 8 so far. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, things have been generally pretty close. We've had reverse sweeps. We've had like just normal close games. The format, like just in general, seems really balanced to me. Like even before they did a lot of the card changes in the most recent patch, I thought the format was largely fine. I thought Argent Portent Skater might be too good. But I won't get into that whole conversation. But outside of that, format's been like very balanced, considering how early this game is into its lifespan. So
right, it felt like maybe the tournament meta has been fairly balanced this whole time, but the ladder meta was getting slightly more toxic and unhealthy just because how fast Jito was compared to, like, it was pushing out a lot of mid-range decks. Where now, like, there's so much more mid-range that it should be easier to play certain control decks on ladder, but there's such a variety of decks now that it's just like too healthy for control. It's just like, I don't know what to counter anymore, or how to tech my removal and stuff. It's incredible right now. It's all to Arrow of Digital for an excellent game so far.
Jito was kind of a remnant of when sideboarding was a part of the ladder, so you can't make like linear powerful decks like that, like things similar to like Affinity for anyone familiar with Magic. Like you can make super focused linear powerful decks if you're like when you have access to a sideboard and you can side in hate, and then the matchup on the whole is balanced. But on ladder, it's just best of one. So when you encounter like all these Jito decks that would be balanced by post sideboard games, and there are no post sideboard games, they just become problematic. So it's likely why we saw
and even if
Direwolf change it.
And even if they were balanced by sideboard games, like Silver Bullet sideboard games can be a little boring, where it's like, oh, this deck that has access to Plague or Lightning Storm's good, and these ones that don't are still kind of messed up. And the other big thing that Jito was bringing to the table. That this is only one set, and Jito's already like when the card pool's at its smallest, and there should be the least number of efficient 1-drops. Jito is already playable.
Yep, and we do finally get to start game 5, and it's a little bit of an awkward hand from Hythar. He can't get the green and also cast his Temple Scribe. We might see him ship it back, and he does.
Mm-hmm.
And this has power, I guess. He will be able to cast spells. He just needs some spells to cast.
Yep, it's got to protect though. Like that cannot be overstated in this matchup. Like protect and Desert Marshal are a nice start to this for this hand. Like I like that hand from Hythar a lot. Meanwhile, Tobias looking for a hand with the spells he can cast and finds one. Ooh, Pirate Knight opening.
This is a really good hand. He gets a turn. He has to play 1-drop, Katakuri into Champion of Chaos. He's going to be putting Hythar under a lot of pressure, which he can't really deal with. He will be able to Desert Marshal the Pirate Knight, but currently this Champion of Chaos does not have an answer in Hythar's hand. So we will see the Quarry, Tobes, and our Report Instigator is not bad, although it's kind of awkward. You want the power a bit.
Yeah. The Instigator could be good until it's not, and we'll figure out when that point is, right? From Tobias' standpoint, you don't know what's in your opponent's hand, but Instigator not at its best in this matchup, especially when you're not getting it out early, because it does get trumped by basically every unit in your opponent's deck.
Yeah, it's good on turn. If it gets in for like 3-6 damage, it's great, but it needs to do that. And
into 2 open power here, you have some interesting decisions. You could go Instigator, hold up Torch, but I think just getting your Champion of Chaos out here is the correct.
Well, I think now that you attack first, now you see that it's this Desert Marshal, and now you could just torch it, or at least I thought you would want to torch it, but apparently Tobias has bigger plans for these torches, so he's just going to, instead of playing Argent Torch, going to play out the Champion of Chaos.
Yeah, Tobias is committed to this Champion of Chaos coming out this turn no matter what. Again, he doesn't know that Hythar doesn't really have a unit this turn or the next turn or whatever. Will he shoot off this favor?
Yep, we'll see the Var's favor. I guess that there's not a huge amount of things to target. He just wants power, wants to build this Flame Blast.
It helps when you know your opponent's playing things like Stand Together and Protect if it comes to that, but that's probably projecting for a game that's not winnable for Burn anyway.
And we see, I like this play from Tobias, not playing around Harsh Rule. Like, sandbagging the 3/3 doesn't do anything. It's not good later. You just have to hope your opponent doesn't have it. And as it happens, they don't. Like, Hythar only has this great Parliament, which doesn't really do a lot here. This Flame Blast is likely to just take care of it, and then 8 damage is going to come through.
Yeah, Hythar is kind of forced to play out this Parliament before he can hold up Protect and has nothing else going on in hand. Imagine Tobias will just use the Flame Blast on it, then play a Fire Sigil and get the hold up Torch and push through a ton of damage.
Yeah, he's spending some of his reach to do it, but
yeah, I suppose his other option is like offer the trade and not swing with a 3/3, but
nothing
Flame
seems
Blast on a
good.
4/4 here is basically representing like 5 to 6 extra damage. That's a lot.
Yeah, you get the Argent Port trigger, you get to attack for 8. It's so much damage, and we do see him commit to that line, send in the cavalry.
Oh, he needs to make sure he's clicking the right cards here. This is why you use A space, so that the only mistake you can do is hit space instead of A and skip your whole turn.
I've done that, so there are hazards to the A space.
Does not decide to hold up Torch, probably doesn't matter.
Yeah, and Hythar is actually just on air and concedes, and that's game 5. So we will be seeing Tobias in the finals.
Yeah, Hythar decides to go out the way Cambrai usually takes out its opponent. And yeah, we've got a finals. Do we know what the other match finish was?
It was the non-Stone Scar deck, right?
Yeah, yep. So Ping On Me's got to go up against another Stone Scar Burn deck here and see if he can keep subverting his way through this tournament.
Yep, his deck is set up for it as long as his mana cooperates. He has a lot of good cards in his deck to tech in for that. If he draws Subvert on key removal spells, key burn spells, if he's able to, or sabotage rather, and then he's able to convert Subvert into value, not get punished for taking off turn 4. It's going to work out well for him. He has a lot of experience with the matchup. He's played it several times in this tournament already. Probably has a solid sideboard plan at this point. So we'll have to see how that goes. We'll take a short break to set up our final round here and be back soon. So I'm Truedawn for Rhino. We will see you in a minute.